All right, everybody. Today we have a very special assistant producer for the program. What's your name? Henry. All right, Henry's gonna, and we have Jane behind me.
Hello.
Hello, Jane is Henry's sister. And so he's gonna help produce the podcast today, but he's gonna tell us a little bit about himself. So how old are you, Henry?
10.
10. And what is your favorite thing to do when you're not in school?
Probably watch TV.
Watch TV. What do you like to watch on TV?
Probably YouTube.
YouTube?
Mhm.
I didn't know that was actually TV.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to eat?
Like for dinner, just probably cookies or something.
Cookies or something? So your parents give you a really balanced diet. All right. So is there anyone you want to say hi to? Because this could be nationally, like all over the world. So who do you want to like? You want to say hi to your parents?
No, he does not want to say hi to his parents.
No.
No?
They're in the room.
Do you want to say hi to your sister?
They're laughing and eavesdropping right now.
Hey, you're not on the podcast. Do you want to say hi to any of your friends?
Hi, Harrison.
Hi, Harrison. Okay, that's good. All right. Tell everyone to have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Bachadmia, a podcast so educational two professors could be hosting it. Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Dick McHugh, and joining me is Dr. Bill Henneman. Welcome to Bachadmia. We are at the end of another season of The Bachelorette, and we have two very special guests with us today, Sue and Denell. Bill, do you want to introduce these special women for us?
I will. These are two of my favorite people in the world. They are my two moms, my biological mom, Denell, and my mother-in-law, Sue, who is Elaine's mom. So I'm sure you pieced that together. So what do you guys want to tell us about yourselves? I should mention, whenever we shout out to the only two fans we have, these are the two people we're thinking of. And the reason that we are in the same room is we are actually on vacation in South Carolina right now. And so we are sitting in a beach house. So if you hear noises or kids peek through, we are like 10 of us in a beach house. So yeah. What do you want to tell us about yourselves?
So he already said that I'm Elaine's mom, and I've been Elaine's mom for a really long time. And also have various jobs throughout my careers and stuff. But right now I'm retired for about 7 years, and I love it. And I've spent a lot of my retirement time doing tie-dye. You're on, Denell.
Let's see. Bill's mom for a very long time. And a little bit about me. I just like to have fun. And I just like it when everybody's nice to everybody and have a good time.
And you can tell she likes to have fun because it is noon and she's already drinking a Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
Yay.
So.
Bring the party.
And I love my daughter's mother-in-law. That's another thing I can tell you.
And I love my son's mother-in-law.
Aw, this is so nice. And I'm so excited to have parent perspectives too on this very final episode of The Bachelorette.
What a transition.
So one of the things that we like to do is ask like a funny kind of unrelated question. And as we kind of are rolling out of the end of the summer, my question for y'all is, what do you get bored of, or what could you never get bored of?
What do you think?
Okay. I get bored of watching hunting shows with my husband. And now that I figured out that we can say what we want, I get really bored of Fox News. And then I tell my husband, well, good night. That's like a sedative. And so there's one thing. What I could never get bored of is eating popcorn and broccoli, two of my favorite foods.
And coffee.
Oh, and drinking coffee,
Yeah.
a lot of it.
Yeah, she drinks coffee from the morning on. As she's falling asleep, she will have a cup of coffee.
What about those?
Oh, and I do love a Bloody Mary.
That's
Sue?
awesome.
Okay, let's see. I get bored of people answering short questions with really long, detailed answers in a very slow voice. Like you feel like you're a prisoner in the conversation, and all you wanted to know is, hey, did you have fun on the beach? And then, but you know, not that that happened here. That was just an example. And I never get tired of tie-dyeing.
Yay.
D3, what about you?
So I don't really get bored that easily. Like, I think I can find most things interesting, but I will say that I really, really like food and a variety of food. So I'm not one of those people that could be like, oh, I'm going to eat the same thing every single day, so I know my diet's healthy. Like, I need some excitement. So I could get bored of eating the same food all the time. What I could never get bored of is reading. Like, I could read all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I get bored of pancakes. I think they are the most boring food. It's just like the same thing over and over. Yeah, I don't like pancakes. I'm trying to think of what I don't get bored of. Books on tape, audiobooks.
Oh.
I like to read, but even more, I really like the ability to do things while I'm listening to them. So I probably go through like 15, 20 books every 3 or 4 months, depending on how long they are. So,
Did you all listen to anything good on the drive?
we did a lot of podcasts. What about you guys?
We never turned the radio on. We never turned
It
it
was
on.
3 moms in a car for 18 hours, and I guarantee there was no silence.
No, we never had a bored moment where
No.
we didn't have,
Yeah, the only thing we listened to was the Garmin,
yeah,
or whatever you call it now.
our
Well,
direct.
So much time.
That's amazing. Now, what I will say is, while this episode of The Bachelorette was not boring, I do think they didn't need 3 hours of it.
No.
So
No.
I'll never be bored by The Bachelorette, but like, there are lots of commercials. So we'll jump on in. This episode begins with a recap of Katie's journey.
First
leading-
off, the first thing that they could get rid of. Like, at this point, you're not just tuning in the first time, right?
No. So
Yeah.
like, yes. So like, we probably don't need that much of a recap. We just had the Men Tell All episode not that long ago, and that's pretty much like an hour, 2 hour long recap. So, you know, we probably didn't need this recap, but it did show us this argument that she had with Greg. Very surprising and emotion evoking last week, with him leaving, and we're kind of questioning whether or not Katie is going to stay. But it turns out that Katie just needed a night of sleep and she was ready to roll the next morning. So the next day we see Justin and Blake waiting for a rose ceremony, kind of speculating what happened to Greg, and Tayshia and Kaitlyn come in and they let her know that Greg's left. And then I wonder if they're going to say that Katie's left, but they're like, oh, well, we're just moving on. Were you all surprised by this? Did you expect like more to happen? Like with the Greg stuff?
I don't know. At that point, I just remember when the 2 girls came in to tell the 2 guys, you know, that Greg left, you know, it was like, yeah, there had to be something, somebody jumped, but I just think it was funny, but she said, but the good news is, the way she said,
Yeah.
the good news is, like, immediate, they must have thought it was over too, like they thought Greg had it. I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, I thought Blake had the smirk on his face, like winning. Bye. I'm up.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought they were going to send Blake and Justin home, and then it was going to be her and Greg trying to figure out if they're together again, or if they can reconcile. So I was really surprised.
Yeah, I was too. I kind of thought the way that we saw the previews, I thought that maybe she was gonna leave for a little while and then like come back or something. So
Well, didn't a little bit of you maybe think that they were gonna say, wait a minute, we're gonna bring in 6 more guys.
Randomly.
surprise.
That's why it's 3 hours.
We found these guys at the Prairie Star Casino. They're in.
Yeah.
That would have made sense why the episode was so long, but so they jump right in. They're just like, okay, so now Katie and Blake are gonna go on a date, and they do, and they start out by playing with paint-filled balloons, which sounds like a good time. And then they head to the hot tub. You just can't have a season of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette without like a freestanding hot tub.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
That's true.
so I was glad for that. So in the hot tub, Katie tells Blake sort of what happened between her and Greg. So basically she says, so I was like really connecting to Michael, and then like he left, and then I felt really, really connected to Greg and he left. So that was a bummer. Like, what did you all think about this moment?
So I have nothing left but to pick from you or Justin.
Yeah.
Right.
Or yeah.
That's what I felt like it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, I couldn't be happy if I wouldn't be happy if I was Blake, especially after what she said, which was kind of half of what really happened. And then like you go back and you're watching it with her and you're like, wow, I am really third place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Blake looked like he was just like mind blown by it. I've said this before, I don't think emotionally he's got a lot going on. And so I feel like she said it to him and he was like, I don't know what this emotion is. Well, since I don't know it, I'm just going to keep rolling with this.
Yeah, it seems like he didn't really know how to respond in the moment, but then as he was processing it with the cameras, he's kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. And but yet things just continue on. Like, I think that's the most confusing part to me about this entire episode was it was just like there were all these signs that maybe we should like pause things, rethink things, reflect on things, and people are like, nah, we're gonna just keep going. So here Blake's sort of like, oh, did she just basically tell me I was in, like I'm third place? And he's like, I think I'll go to dinner and tell her that I love her.
Yep.
See how this turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they go to dinner, he professes his love for her finally, and it takes him forever. So Sue, if long rants bore you.
Yeah. Yeah, he had several times where he talked and it was almost like, is he like processing this in the moment? Like, is it just like, and then he's going to be like, yep, no, I don't. Okay. Yeah, let's go. He was like doing it like how I pick like hot sauce at the store where it's like, I want, no, yeah, okay, this one, and you're just like, fuck it, okay, this guy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think I'm a very cynical person when it comes to the show, and I still see things like somebody standing behind Katie with cue cards for Blake to read. Yes, because every time, that's why they cut to her. They cut to her face, they cut to his face back and forth because of the cards, and it's like, I don't know. I just think they had to tell Blake what to do next to make the show go on. It was just kind of, here's the deal, guys. We're just going to go on with the show.
Well, and then, so after all of the stress around Greg not really getting responded to when he says, I love you, Blake says, I love you. And Katie's response is, I effing love you too.
Yeah, she like really, like there was a part of me that's like, is she afraid if she doesn't say that, then he'll run too? That was what I was wondering, because she seemed to like overcorrect, Like she's not going to say I love you to anyone. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to like really put this out there.
Well, I had so many questions. I was like, did she respond this way because she's always felt this way about Blake? Did she respond this way because only Blake and Justin are left and she doesn't remember who Justin is? Like, I mean, I just didn't, did she respond this way because she didn't with Greg and that resulted in something so bad that, like you said, she's afraid now?
Yeah, well, and after the fantasy suite, she sits down with Kaitlyn. I feel like I'm moving us along, sorry, but we can't resist a good transition here on Bachadmia. And Danielle set me up and I'm going to spike it. But then like Kaitlyn's like, oh, how was the night? And they like titter and giggle about how satiating it was. And then she's like, oh, by the way, Justin's still here. And it's like Katie had totally forgotten, right? And what were our thoughts on that?
I just think it was interesting the way she was so devastated. She's begging that Greg to stay and that, on her knees or whatever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, let's go.
I'm surprised.
Blake's here and Justin's out. Bye-bye.
Well, and I'm surprised. I just seeing her on The Bachelor, I thought she had a lot more self-confidence than what she's showing in this, demonstrating as the Bachelorette. And she just seemed so desperate, you know what I mean? And I'm just kind of surprised because she seemed like she was this confident, upfront woman coming from the family, which we'll talk about later, I guess, that we met and stuff. And it just really surprised me that she seemed so desperate.
I think so too, Sue. I think one of the most, disappointing things for me in this entire episode is that I've always been a pretty big Katie fan, and I feel kind of let down by her.
I know, I'm disappointed too.
Yeah. So, I realized, so this is like me kind of nerding out here a little bit, but I had a student write a thesis, and one of the concepts was this concept of parasociality, which is like when you watch television, or you can do it reading a book too, but how
is this next credit? Extra credit.
It's an unplanned extra credit, but it's like when you start to form a relationship with people, like characters in a show or something, and you feel like you know them. And I was just realizing that I totally feel that way with Katie. Like, so I have a parasocial relationship with
Danielle's
Katie.
not mad. She's just disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed. Oh my goodness. What did you all think about the fantasy suite? Do you think they have good chemistry?
Oh, go ahead.
I just said, I think that Justin probably wished he had the fantasy suite first.
Well, that was so Sue said that when we were watching it, she was like, well, and we had some kids in the room, so we were also like spelling things out. And we were hoping none of them were like, well, that's a fantasy suite. So we were going, but she was like, do you think if Justin would have got the fantasy suite first, it would have been him? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I was just so surprised that she turned and was like so into Blake that quick that, yeah, I don't know. But they seemed happy. They seemed like they enjoyed it. Good for them.
I've always felt like her and Blake have a unique connection. It just has never felt, it's always felt a little more surface level and maybe less mature than her relationship with either Michael or Greg.
Well, I feel like that's right up the fantasy suites alley. Like, there's not a lot of talking and emotional exploration that probably goes on in there. It's like hitting to Blake's like strong suit.
Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
See, I am smart, guys.
Yeah.
I know this stuff.
Did she make a good decision breaking up with Justin then? Do you all think?
I think for Justin's sake, she did. I feel like Justin needed to be let go. He clearly wasn't a front runner. And we listened to several podcasts about the Bachelorette on the way down here, which that was the first time I've listened to anyone other than ours. And all of them were like, Justin has no chance. it's very clear he's not really like, she's not into him, which I was like, well, I don't know where they are, but after them kind of laying their case, I was like, oh yeah, that poor guy's like just kind of getting strung along. So I felt like it was good she let him go.
Mhm.
I really appreciated when Justin was on the After the Rose and he asked her, you know, kind of, you know, like, why was I there in some ways? Like,
Yeah.
I thought that he asked that kind of hard question, or, you know, like everyone kind of has been speculating, like, why has Justin still been there? And he kind of asked her that. I don't know if he got a very satisfying answer, but I appreciated him having the guts to ask.
Yeah, it was kind of a generic answer, I think, something.
But that's
Yeah,
been like
it's like-
all of her answers. For as much as
Yeah,
people are like,
yeah.
she's honest and open, it's like, I feel like she has given a lot of like politician answers. Like, well, you know,
Yeah,
the
that's true.
Mhm.
statement that I'm about to make is not indicative of ABC. Solely, like basically like our statement at the end of the show, where it's like, the person who's spoken, it's solely their opinion.
My opinion right now, I have the right to reserve and change it.
Yeah.
Next episode.
I will point out I'm not texting on my cell phone. I don't have two monitors today. So this is, I have the show notes over here that I'm scrolling on. So
So do you think that Katie did a good job breaking up with Justin, our relationship expert here?
well, I love breakups. I think they're fascinating. I think that I feel like the best breakup is the one where people come away feeling like they have some closure. And I guess I feel like he seemed like he had closure. She seemed like she had closure. I guess in the end, I feel like that's an easy breakup because they both seemed like, I'm not that into this. It's like Justin said he was sad, but he also, it's like one of, you know, I think we've all been dumped at some point. It's like, oh, that sucks, but I'll get over it in a couple days, as opposed to like, you know, other ones where it's like, wow, you know, I don't know if I'm going to get over this. So,
But I think like his response was kind of almost a nurturing attitude towards her, because he was like, well, this is what I learned, and
mhm.
look how much better I can express myself. Like, I mean, I did think he was very caring in his response. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
That's a strong opinion there, Mom.
Thank you.
So Blake meets Katie's family, and Katie's family has personality. So her mom and then her Aunt Lindsay. So Aunt Lindsay gives Blake all sorts of hell, and all I could think of the entire time was like, this would have destroyed Greg. Like,
Yeah.
I just, the whole time I was like, Greg would be broken after this visit.
Yes. He would have been sucking his thumb on the ground, like, no, I'm a good person. Like,
Oh my gosh. She said so many funny things, like when she's like, so why'd you flunk out of the other season? And also she makes like the comment about the vibrator, you know, but then she
Yeah.
also asked, you know, she also asked some really, really serious and important questions. What did you all think about this? Was she being too harsh? Was she asking was she saying what needed to be said?
what do you
Yeah,
guys
what do you
I just think she was protective of her
Mhm.
niece, Katie, and it's like,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna ask these questions because
Mhm.
I don't think she fully trusts him.
I'm curious if the mom and Lindsay, the aunt, if they knew what had happened up until then, like with Greg and the people that left, and this is her
Oh.
third choice.
Mm.
I wonder if they knew any of that. I don't know. Curious, because I mean, that would make you put their guard up a whole lot, you know, if they knew anything about what was going ahead of
Mhm.
time. I don't know.
I feel like she could have been a little more tactful in it. Like at one point she was like, in the end, you don't matter. You're here because we want you.
That's right.
Like, it's
That's
like,
great.
I guess, and Katie said, you know, my aunt is very abrupt. She said almost cold.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's just her personality. And if you're gonna be in that family, you got to deal with her. So, you know, that's the thing. But I guess I feel like she could have been a little bit more thoughtful. I thought he handled it okay, although I don't think his answers were great. She was like, how are you going to keep this marriage together? We just have something and we're just going to commit to it. And if I was counseling them, I would be like, that is not a plan. That is a hope. You need to, what concrete action. So in that way, I thought she was doing a good job. She just could have done it in a way that wasn't like, shut up and sit down. I'm going to drop some knowledge on you, beard.
But
I did like she called him the beard.
Yeah.
I like that, the beard. Why do you want the beard?
Mhm.
I know, it's great. But I mean, the first statement come out like, well, somebody asked, what does he do for a living? Well, right now I'm unemployed and I'm going to Africa. It was so vague, the
Mhm.
plan. It's just so vague, but they're going to figure out a way to work it out. It's like, okay.
I feel like as a nice Canadian boy, he's never had to work very hard for the affection of parents.
Mhm.
And this was the first time somebody was kind of like, I might not like you. And he was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that was interesting for me is, I haven't really been I haven't been cheering on the idea of her and Blake ending up together. But when I saw his family and then her family, I did go, oh, this seems like a better match. Like that they have more similar types of families that like they might actually, they're either going to hate each other, the families, or they're going to mesh really well. But I think both Katie and Blake come from families, for better or worse, with more similar communication styles.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that they both are open and honest. And if they can get over the somewhat shock of the bluntness,
Mhm.
at least they'll get past issues because they'll talk them out. So when Elaine
Yeah,
met
that
my
makes
mom,
sense.
my mom gave her hell. I mean, she just,
I didn't.
no, not at all. The day my mom met Elaine, I felt like she was ready to get rid of me and be like, I'll just take a second daughter and get rid of my son. And my mom is Elaine's biggest fan,
I
maybe
do love
only
her.
behind Sue. So
That's okay.
Yeah. Go away.
So my husband and I got engaged very quickly. And when Ryan went home to his family and said, I'm thinking about proposing, his sister said, to who? Because we hadn't dated for very long. So we have like some funny, like meeting the family stories in our own relationship. Because I think the first time Ryan met my parents, he asked my dad if he could marry me. And so I deeply empathize with what they have to do in terms of meeting the family on these shows.
So when I met Elaine, when I asked Elaine's dad and stepdad, because I thought that was very important, because I love her stepdad. He's like a dad as well. And his response was, either way, whatever.
Oh my God.
And he's a former forester and he's a man of very few words. Would you say that, Sue?
Yeah.
And he's the nicest guy, but like he just sometimes when he says stuff, it's like, that's it. And that's all you get. And so his response was, fine, either way, we were cool with whatever you do. I guess that's a
See?
yes.
That's why we fit together. No big long explanations on an easy question.
Yep.
Mhm.
There you go. So that night they go on a date, and it was kind of funny because they're like, Katie's like, we need to have a serious date, and in my head I'm like, oh, they're going to talk about all of these questions and things that came up from the conversation with Aunt Lindsay that like Blake wasn't able to answer a lot of these questions very well. So like they're going to have some time to work these out. And instead it's like, we're going to have a serious conversation. And then it's like energy healer. And so I thought that was kind of.
So Sue, go ahead, Danielle.
I just thought it was funny.
It is great.
Sue is a former Albuquerque resident in New Mexico for what, like 15, 20 years, something like that total.
Yeah, almost
And
15.
she knew exactly what that creepy ass
Zozo
monster.
bra, yeah.
Yeah. And she immediately was like, oh yeah, that's that, and was like explaining it to us. So that wasn't just a cooked up weird energy healer bachelor thing. They do that every year in
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like all about the energy healing. I'm down for that. I just am not sure that that's the date that they needed at that moment.
Yeah, I know, it was weird. And it was
Yeah.
like, even I lived like, less than, 3 miles by air from Tamaya. And so at the hotel and stuff where the whole thing takes place. And so I know the landscape and everything. So when they did that little last drive out there for the proposal and all that stuff, there's no drive like that with those red cliffs behind them. It's all just flat desert right there, just flat as can be.
Yeah. So
Just
she was
like-
saying that's like B-roll. They just like, he's probably not even in the car. They probably just took an SUV out and just like drove around somewhere. Like, this isn't scenic enough,
Well, and the interesting thing is, I don't know if you ever noticed, but you're driving around out there in the desert and a lot of those roads aren't paved. It's dirty out there, but every time one of those black limos pulls up from anywhere, it's spotless, just spotless.
Oh, that's a good point. Because
Yeah,
when we
it
would
is.
come to visit you, it's like by the time you get to the house, your car's just covered in that like reddish dust.
But it was fun to see the hotel and everything, though. I liked it.
That's awesome. I love the insights too of like thinking about how B-roll and things like that alters like how we experience the show and what we think is real or whatever.
It's true.
But so like Blake is super nervous. He's having all sorts of doubts about whether the engagement is really the best next step for the relationship, which I would say maybe too. But he forges along, he picks out a ring. He is so stressed. He pulls up and Tayshia and Kaitlyn are out there waiting and they like have this conversation, and I just keep thinking this whole time he's having all these conversations about proposing and like picking out a ring with his ex-girlfriend.
Yes. I don't know if you were dating someone and they were texting with their ex and like going to lunch and having these in-depth conversations. I don't know if I would be comfortable with that. I'd be a little bit like, that's a little weird.
It makes you realize maybe how surface level though
Right.
some of these
Yeah.
relationships are on the show, because it is a short amount of time. And Blake didn't stay on Tayshia's season for that long, did he? Do you remember?
It was long. He was like in the top. I think he was maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So not like an excessive amount of time, but not a short amount of time.
Well, because she had such a short season.
Yeah, oh, that's true. I always forget that she didn't really have a season. She had like half a season. Carlos is coming in.
Come on, Carlos.
So they wrap things up. Will he propose? Will he not propose? They go to that like the weird scenes that they always have where they have a little stage at the end. And Katie professes her love for him. I think she says some really lovely things. She's much more articulate in how she expresses herself.
Yes.
And then he rambles and he's going back and forth and I have no clue what's going on. I think he's proposing, then I think he's not proposing. At one point, I think he says something to the extent of, I can't give you what you wanted today.
Yeah.
And he's like trying really hard to not look disappointed, but she's like clearly disappointed. But then he gets down on one knee, he proposes, we celebrate.
I felt like he was trying to be really clever. And it just wasn't coming across as clever.
I felt like he didn't know what he was doing. I felt like he's like, okay, I'm not going to propose. I'm going to say some really nice things though and set us up to keep having a relationship. And then he's like, oh, she looks really pretty. I guess I'll just pop the question. I don't know. I've got a ring with me. I felt like it was just like not even, I felt like he didn't know what he was doing. And then just went with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he couldn't see the cue cards.
I used to show a video in class called You're Not That Clever. and it was basically this girl telling this guy, it was like an animated cartoon, but it was like basically like, don't like get a giant flying plane to propose, just get down on a knee and ask me. I don't need this big production. And I felt like he was trying to make it this huge like shock. And Mom, didn't you have a brilliant point?
Yes, I
That you
want
wanted
to
to ask?
know, why is it when it's the Bachelorette, why isn't she proposing to the men?
And a ring.
Yeah,
with the
and
ring.
yeah, like,
Strong
like
feminist power up in
she's-
here.
yeah,
Mhm.
why isn't she picking out the ring, asking them? Because it's
It's
her
weird.
choice.
Is
Huh?
your-
Yeah,
is
it's
her
so
name
weird.
Lindsay.
Oh, no, but I do have a daughter.
Well, it's also really
Like, I'm wondering why they've never done that.
well, I also find it really awkward when there are still multiple contestants left at the end. And so like I'm thinking about Hannah Brown and Tyler Cameron, where they start to propose and then the woman has to like stop them and say like,
Yes.
no, like you're not my choice. And it's this super uncomfortable sort of thing.
Yeah, it is.
Right, so they need to
Mhm.
maybe think about that. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know why. Like, it just seems like it's a kind of an artifact of a woebegone time where, like, really, why do men need to
Be the
propose to
one.
women? Like, it really should be whoever's ready. And honestly, it should be like an agreement. Like, at some point, you should be like, "This is going well. We should probably get married. Yeah, let's go get you a ring." So
But I mean, when it's the Bachelorette and she's picking the person,
Yep.
yeah,
Well, and it's kind of like the final rose ceremony, not the
Yeah.
proposal ceremony, not the ring ceremony, the
right?
final rose. So I don't even know why it has to have the ring, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Except that, that maybe that's what, Americans want to see, a ring.
yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe what's the name of the company that sells
Neil
the rings?
Lane.
Neil
Maybe
Lane.
they spend a lot of money to get on that show.
Well, I think that's part of it, is that Neil Lane donates a ton of money, or like pays for a ton of advertisements, and damn it, they're gonna get their like 5 minutes of awkward ring picking where the guy's like, "I've known you for
Mhm.
5 weeks. Let me pick a ring out for you," which
Yeah, and why can't the girl pick the ring for the guy?
and give it to him and be
Yeah.
like, "Put it on you."
Mhm.
Well, so one of the questions that I sort of have for you all too is, there's this conversation, where you'll hear this on the show, and Blake iterated it too. He's like, when I get engaged, like, I only want to be engaged once. I only want to ask somebody to get married once. And I was like really thinking about this cultural expectation around that. And just this idea that this is like this really, really sacred thing. And I struggle with that because, like, on one hand, I understand like maybe why you'd want to keep that sacred. On the other hand, I think within the show, the context of the show,
Mhm.
giving yourself some space to go like, nothing about this like is a regular experience.
Right.
Like if I do propose and we get engaged and like things don't work out, like maybe I just need to chill out about that. Like, I don't know. Or the pressure to be engaged needs to like chill out some. I don't know. It's just like I've been so struck by sort of the sacredness of that act, and that this should be something you only do once in your lifetime. And so then the pressure that puts on people in this moment.
And I always wonder where does the tradition of a woman having an engagement ring on actually come from? I mean, when did it have to become not even necessarily a diamond, but what about that? The guy doesn't wear a ring saying that he's going to marry somebody, but a lot of women have,
Mhm.
Yeah, they
this
get the
engagement,
engagement
ring.
And then they get a wedding ring, and it's like you can't hit on this girl right now because she's gonna go to this guy. And Yeah,
but
I don't.
but the guy doesn't wear
Yeah,
one.
I don't know why you're pointing at me. Like I wasn't out like at the bar when I was engaged to your daughter Sue. Settle
You
down.
didn't have to, you lived with her.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, and it is like an interesting, we like to have outward markers of sort of private commitments, right?
Mhm.
And we do that in a lot, like we have rituals around a lot of those things. But yeah, I think it would be interesting. I'm sure that there's a really interesting history of engagement rings that maybe I'll study up and do that for the next
Ooh.
season.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have to talk about the after the rose and
Yeah.
the whole Greg mess.
This is why they made it 3 hours, because everyone wanted to just see the Greg like blow up. Oh, we did do a poll. So I should
Oh, I
say
didn't
that
see the
on
poll.
Twitter. About 80 people responded. About 10% of those 80 people saw her proposing to Blake, which I also think 10% of the people that responded to this poll were liars. And then about 45 and 45 said no, they didn't see it coming, and the other 45 said we are very confused, and I was in the very confused. So that's the wrap up. No one saw this coming. Everyone was a little bit confused about how this transpired because of Greg, and then they brought him on.
So one of the things that I was really sort of shocked by is I thought we would see something with Greg again before a proposal happened too.
Yeah.
Like I thought that they would be like surprised Greg wants to have another conversation, or like surprise we're flying Katie out because she needs to have closure with Greg before this.
That's good.
I thought for sure, like the fact that we didn't get to see Katie and Greg again until after all of this transpired was kind of surprising for me.
Yeah.
So this is an incredibly awkward conversation. They bring him out by himself and he says some pretty predictable things, right? He's glad that she found love. He learned so much from the experience. They ask him if he regrets anything, and he says that he does not, because things worked out for Katie in the end. But then they bring Katie out and it is cold. Right? So Katie is not happy. She's pissed. Immediately, she doesn't hug him. She doesn't shake his hand. Like there's no contact. She accuses Greg of talking down to her, of gaslighting her, which she defines as making someone think it's their fault. It's clear that she feels abandoned by him. And that she also says that she thinks that he did this for his acting career. Whoa, what did you all think?
I know.
About?
I liked it when she actually called him outright liar. I couldn't believe that. Just like, you're a liar. It's like, whoa, I don't know about the acting career thing. I think she did a lot of checking after she let him go about what his story was, maybe. I don't know.
So I had not heard about the acting career thing until the podcast listening on the way out here. And Elaine was like, oh yeah, this has been going around for a while. So he's not a good Elaine was like, so our conversation in the car was either he is the greatest actor ever because he like was somehow able to create this persona of like mopey Eeyore Greg, or he's the worst actor ever. There's no in between.
No, I just don't know that I'm convinced that he is either this like completely innocent guy, right? Nor do I think that he is this like evil person that Katie is trying to paint him as now. Like, I think that he is somewhere in between.
Yeah. I feel like they could have had a conversation off camera, because I feel like that was a legitimate argument with them. And Katie had a lot of time to stew about it. I just feel like it would have went much better on camera, because I don't think he wanted to fight when he knew it was live and there's other people there. And the internet really turned on Katie. So I was kind of following it live on Twitter, and they're like, yeah, get him, Katie, he's so mean. And then about 20 minutes into her like rage, they were like, whoa, just settle down, let the guy have some. Katie's clearly not over him, you know. And so
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't help anyone to broadcast some of that. I mean, I tuned in because obviously I want to see it and I love a good train wreck, but for their personality and their like, I don't think it helped them at all.
Didn't he like at one point say, I wish I had said it differently? Or
Yeah,
I wish
given, yeah.
You know, I think he was maybe trying to, but man, how can you finally come out with your little apology after she just,
Yeah.
you know, nails you like that? It's after somebody comes out with both barrels going, you know, it's like just to have the composure, not say F you, you know, to her, that just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
She
think that's
seems
hard.
like she's still a little salty over the whole thing.
Oh, salty's a good word for it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
she is salty.
Well, it was so uncomfortable in part because like one, I did not think for the most part it was a good look for Katie.
No.
So because I didn't know what she expected him to be able to say in return that would have sort of created closure for them. And so, I mean, I think she made some good points, right? Like, I do think she's like, hey, look at all of the ways that I validated you. And, you know, going back and watching these, I validated you in all these different ways. And I think that she's right. And I think she's also right to question, like, if you were that in love with me, why did you just give up? But I think part of what made it so uncomfortable is that it's clear that she feels like abandoned by him, that he left. And then you're sort of like, she says she's so happy with Blake and that everything worked out all right. And like that Blake, she knew that she was in love with Blake earlier on. And you're just kind of like, there is a part of you that's like, would you still need to feel so salty? Right?
Yeah.
So my question for you all is, do you think that you can have unresolved feelings and still move on?
Not in a healthy way. I think it'll come up again.
I especially don't think she can, because
No.
she was already talking about telling the other guys about this guy left and that guy
Yeah.
left. I think, you know, she's the same. If something doesn't go right in a relationship, she's going to be poor me all
Yeah.
the time. And
In the long term, I don't think, yeah.
and she's gaslighting, maybe trying to prove that it's their fault, if you want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So this gaslighting term works both ways.
I do think she better hope that Blake fights fair, because the first time they get in an argument, if he's not somebody who can like check what he says, he's going to be like, well, do you even really want to be with me? You threw this tantrum
Right.
Yeah.
when you were so mad
Mhm.
when Greg left. Like, why am I even in this relationship? And probably not a legitimate question, but also like, if you're Blake and you watch that, right? I mean, she's not above bringing stuff like that up. You know,
Mhm.
she brought stuff like that up to Greg. I mean, now if Blake brings it up, she can't really be like, fight fair, you know? So
Mhm.
I think that that's something that I feel like I really learned in this episode, both from this interaction, you know, with Katie and Greg, but also I think meeting Katie's family, I think I realized that there are some definite ways that she has some unhealthy communication practices that have probably been modeled for her for a while. And, you know, that's going to probably impact her relationships no matter who she's with. And that doesn't mean she can't have a healthy relationship. I think that she certainly can, but I do think that there's ways that like, she's a tough fighter.
yeah.
She's gonna be a tough person to fight with.
Well, and I think some of what you saw was that when she was in the moment with Greg, she was very placating to him. And then after, she like went after him. And so I guess my question is, what changed? And that's not a healthy way to fight, right? Like, if you're going to have it out, have it out. If you're going to take a break, take a break. But I don't think it's fair to like placate them. And then when they kind of ended, be like, all right, now I'm going to say everything I wanted to say.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So do you think that Greg dodged a bullet? Do you think that if he would have stayed, they would have had a chance? What do y'all think?
well, I don't think Greg wanted to be there. I think
Mhm.
he wanted out. And after seeing the After the Rose, it was very clear that he was not broken up about them not being together, right? So he wasn't like, I don't think at any point he said, man, I really missed the train. I wish we could get back together. He just said, I'm sorry for the way it went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I don't think, I don't think there's any relationship that works well when one person wants in and one person doesn't. So I think he got out when he could have and he should have. He probably could have done it in a much better way. But
So how do you think it would have went if he professed his feelings and she said, oh, yes, I love you too? Would he be? Would they be
I
engaged
feel
now?
like he probably would have been like
Or what?
3 months into this and then been like, oh man,
Yeah.
now I really got to break this off,
Yeah.
And I guess in some ways, maybe Katie did him a favor by giving him that chance to get out, right? Because he wasn't just going to say, I'm not into this. He was waiting for Katie to do something and then, use that
Yeah.
as his reason to blow up.
And that's the gaslighting thing
Right.
we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Which
right?
is probably the chicken way to do it. He probably should have, which no offense to you, Greg, I've been in relationships where I wanted out and I was like, oh, you see that guy look at you? Maybe you should go talk to them. Like, I am really messy. You should
Yeah.
probably dump me. Because it's not fun to break up with someone, but it's also not the right thing to do. So
I think, they both, I think, made some pretty clear missteps.
yeah.
But yeah, it just wasn't a great, it was really uncomfortable and weird to
Right.
watch. So after things wrap up with Greg, they bring out Blake to celebrate the happy couple. Now the internet were commenting on how they felt. So people really felt that her affection for Greg felt a bit forced and aggressive. Did you all feel that? Like he kind of came out and it's like, I think she was like, we're going to make out. And I think he's like, oh, we're doing this.
Watch this, America.
I felt like they were like so in some ways like overly affectionate that it felt like she was trying to prove something to herself or other people. Did you all agree with that? Because other people were like, no, they have undeniable chemistry. They're meant to be together. Why can't you all see that? So
I don't
thought,
know. I think they were sexting together way before the show started.
oh,
Sue's our resident conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
I like it.
She is the
Because-
QAnon of Bachelor Nation. Bachelor Q. She's on some board like, and then I
Well,
heard.
no, I think she was, yeah, I think so. I don't know. Just the fact that all of a sudden he had to get on the show and, and she must have like, well, yeah, let him come on the show now. Or, yeah, I don't know. Just,
So here's my alternate theory is that she just had this argument with Greg and she's trying to prove how he missed the boat. And maybe she likes Blake, but maybe it was a little bit like, you watch this.
Jealous.
I'm
Yeah.
so
Jealous.
in love. Like,
make
yeah.
him jealous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone really like hated Blake, but I think people kind of got this idea that he's a bit of a meathead. He's kind of, and so I wonder if she was like, I really need to make sure that Greg knows this is the right decision.
Yeah.
I call him Baby Blake.
Well, it's so interesting to me that it's like, oh, like Greg, you're here to like kick off your acting career, but I'm gonna settle with this guy who is now on his third Bachelorette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't possibly be on his third show and it be for fame.
Right. Yeah.
Like I just like think that it's funny that it's Blake's intentions were like
Have
really
yeah.
never questioned, yet like he's the one that's on TV for the third time.
So in all the podcasts I listened to on the way out here, several of them were with like former contestants and one was with Wells and
Yeah.
they all were like he's a good guy. I like Blake. So all of them are
Nice
saying
guy.
that they like him. No one was like, and I would want my sister to marry him but they're all like, no, he's a good enough guy. He's, I feel like they're all like, you're not bright, but I'll have them come to my party.
And send them off to Africa when you get tired of them.
How would you guys feel if one of your if your daughters married someone like Blake? Sue's like, you are like Blake, Bill. You don't even know it. Like, you're our Blake. We deal with you every Christmas, Blake, Bill.
Absolutely not true. But oh man, that would have been tough. I mean, I only had one kid and I got really lucky. So it's really hard for me to, you know, to even think about that. I mean, we were really fortunate for this guy, you know. I don't make me cry, but I feel blessed. You know, so.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Mom?
Well, moms are protective of their daughters, so I probably would have had a really serious conversation about, have you thought this all through? But then if they chose to marry someone that I was questioning, of course you're going to have to do your best to welcome them into the family, but I would not be surprised if it didn't end well.
I think I would be an Aunt Lindsay, you know. I'm afraid I would be asking or being really sneaky and asking a lot of questions, you know. And yeah, I mean, like Blake, I mean, what kind of work does he, you know, how's he gonna?
Yeah, you'd have to have that serious conversation where
Yeah.
you're like, are you sure? Are you? I mean, there's a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, my mom did not have that question with me and Elaine. She was like, and no one, I don't think we've ever told the story of how Elaine and I got engaged.
Oh, I've been
Oh, this
waiting
is
to
good.
hear
Do you
it.
want to
I was
tell
hoping
her,
this
Mom,
would
or do you
come
want
up
me
on
to tell
the
her?
podcast.
You can tell.
So Elaine and I had, like, we knew we were going to get engaged, you know, and so Mom's in Cedar Falls with us, and Elaine had her nose pierced, and she's like, oh, can we go into Mohair Pear, which is this kind of store that sells rings and every college campus has it, right? And we're kind of looking at stuff, and my mom's in there, and Elaine whispers to me, hey, dare your mom that if she gets her nose pierced, and at this point, Mom has never had a tattoo, no nose piercings, anything like that. And she's like, dare her, if she gets her nose pierced, we'll get engaged. And I'm like, I'm game. Like, hey, Mom, if you get your nose pierced, we'll get engaged. And she like shoved this woman out of the way and was like, pierce me. She got her nose pierced, and we went and got the ring the next day, and we got engaged. So
And she's never had anything else.
No,
pierced.
I still have it.
she has
I
never
love
let
it.
it grow in. Yeah.
No, but the moment I did that, I'm like, Sue,
I
hey,
know, yeah, she called me up. Like, guess
I
what?
love it.
it's like
Yeah.
party.
Oh, that's a great story. I love that story.
Now she's drunk at 1 o'clock on a beach. So that's
Perfect
mom's
life.
that's
Come
mom's
on.
heroic arc at this
So
point.
I'm living my best life
Yeah.
today,
Yep.
right now.
This is happily ever after.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so before we wrap up this podcast episode, can we please talk about the preview for Bachelor in Paradise? Y'all, I'm so freaking
I'm so
excited.
excited. And first, Danielle, are we doing it? Are we going to do the podcast for that?
Absolutely.
Yes, I am in.
Now I'm gonna have to watch another
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, oh,
I
good.
wasn't watching
this
Yeah,
one.
like you didn't want to.
No, I never
Come
watched
on.
Bachelor in
well,
Paradise.
get
How
ready
you
to
Oh,
have
it's
it?
the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. I'm so excited. You know,
So I have heard
Ah.
Connor is a real star on it. So I may finally change my mind on Connor, but I guess he is amazing the whole season.
the preview looked so good.
Yes.
Like so much drama. Like one of my favorite
Crying.
things about Bachelor in Paradise is like on Bachelor and Bachelorette, people seem like a bit more composed, and it's like they let it all hang out
Yeah.
on Bachelor in Paradise. And so
Yeah.
it's so interesting to see how different people are though too. So
Mhm.
I am ready to go. I'm ready
Yeah.
to see
Do they
some of
get
the
to-
old players, the newer players.
Do they get to hook up like with anybody they want then
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
any time?
Well,
or?
but you have to, there's a point in every episode where they're like, who is your person you're coupling with? And there's always like 2 more women than there are men. And so 2 people go home. But then the next week they bring on like 4 women, or they bring on like 4 men or 2 men. So then you've got too many men, and they keep doing that back and forth.
Yeah, so basically the rose ceremony, they divide it based on sex. So which is interesting because they don't, like, when Demi came out as bi and had a girlfriend on the show, they were like, we don't know how to do the rose ceremony, because they normally do it where all the women get to give out their rose, and then people that aren't coupled at the end of the ceremony, that's who goes home.
Yeah.
So, but then they constantly are bringing new people in. So if someone new comes on and you're already coupled and you're like, yeah. And then some of it's alliances. So like sometimes people don't really they don't really have a romantic relationship, but they want to stay at the beach and party for longer. So like, they'll kind of like have alliances with each other. So
but then you have a lot of times where these people are like, I'm so in love, they're the greatest person in the world. And then a new person comes on and they're like, yeah, no more of you. I want this one. So, and then they're always like, there's a lot of people that are like, I really hope so-and-so comes on. So it's like someone that they know they're attracted to, and then they come on. Well, that person likes someone else. So there's a lot of love triangling.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And they like bring on, people that have maybe dated before. So like all of a sudden their ex comes on and like, you want to watch your ex like hook up with someone else.
We're hooked up. There was a couple seasons ago where there was one guy that had hooked up with like 4 different women on the show. And it was just like, they did not like him. And it's like, he would like kind of have a relationship with someone else. And then the girls would go be like, you don't want to be around him. And she'd be like, oh, okay. And yeah, it was amazing.
That was a Blake too. I felt bad for him actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So lessons learned. What did we learn from the season finale of The Bachelorette?
Yeah. What did we learn? Mom, you're kind of a sage. You always have really good sayings. Like, I just hope every team has fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's how you play the game.
Yeah.
I think every couple, that decides to get engaged or live together or whatever needs an Aunt Lindsay for counseling first.
Yeah.
Somebody to really lay it on the line, make them think. I don't know, chances are, yeah, they're thinking about it a lot, but maybe it's not been broadcast. I don't know. So hopefully.
I've said this before, but you marry someone's family. And so I just think it's important to make sure you're okay with the family.
Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. I lucked out. Yeah. We get along well.
Yeah.
This is kind of quirky. This is for Katie. This is what I think that she thinks. If at first you don't succeed, look again, and then pick another one.
That's Blake too. Yeah.
Very good, Denell. I love that.
Well, I was like trying to think of sayings, and I was like thinking of the one that you kind of said earlier, Bill, along the lines of like, what is it? Like a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Yes.
An engagement without a plan is just a mess. I don't know.
Yeah. A divorce waiting to happen. Yeah.
I don't know. So we shall see.
Everybody has a plan in their relationship until they get in an argument. It's like, what's Mike Tyson said? Mike Tyson said everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Every relationship has a plan until your first argument, and you're like, no.
You've got to fight first. Make sure you're good fighters.
Yeah.
So important. Okay, Sue, Denell, any shout outs?
Ooh, I got a quick shout out. Thank you again. We did this at the beginning, but to our little buddy Henry, who is going to be our guest producer for this show.
Thank you, Henry.
So, yep, if you listened at the beginning, he had a little intro, but we want to say thanks again.
Mm-hmm. I want to say thanks to Elaine for doing makeup and hair.
Yes, Elaine did makeup and hair.
Fashion consultant.
I did not get any makeup and hair, but they did. So
Yeah, she set us up for success.
And Miss Little Jane, we want to say thank you to Jane. She was in here setting up.
She
the
was
set
our
and-
interior.
yeah,
decorator.
Jane did the decorating for our studio today.
Mhm.
So
Well,
And
thank
all
you.
those people that watched the show with us last night, the finale, you were great. They'll
Thank
know
you
who
all
they
so
are.
much for taking time out of your vacation to do this podcast. It was so fun.
Well, we were
We've-
super excited.
Yeah.
we've talked about this day since the beginning that we were going to have a mom's podcast. So this is it.
And here we
Yay!
are.
Oh, wow. I think that's a good way to end. If you're not watching, they're hugging. So
It's the cutest.
we're only on day 3. This made to ride.
No, we have fun together.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Bachadmia with your hosts, Doctors Daniel Dick McGew and Bill Henniger. All opinions expressed on this show are solely the opinion of the person who spoke them. If you like our podcast, please consider following us, leaving us a 5-star rating, and a positive review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, please share with your friends, family, and other ardent Bachelor content lovers. If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at bachadmia@gmail.com or on the Twitter with the handle @Bachadmia. Thanks for listening.